I have something to tell you. Game development takes a long time. Honestly, I was kind of blessed with the situation that I ended up in. I designed a tabletop RPG called Utopia. It took 4 years. I launched it on Kickstarter and it garnered a ton of support. I'm currently in the final stages of development, integrating the patch notes, commissioning the final pieces of art, editorial, and then finally, shipping. The reason that I'm so lucky is because nobody knew what Utopia was when I started, so I could take however long I needed to. Then I say, hey, this is a game I made. And I was astounded, so grateful for the amazing response that the community gave to me. But something new entered the arena. Pressure. Deadlines are now much more serious. When I'm promising something, I'm promising it to thousands of people. And frankly, I don't plan to disappoint you. Here's what I've learned. After 4 grueling years of staring at this book, reading it over and over and over, removing unimportant information from my brain like whatever saute means to make more space, editing, tweaking, balancing, editing, tweaking, balancing, rinse and repeat for thousands of hours, I came to one final decision. I'm gonna do it again. In 2020, I designed a 117-page expansion for D&D 5th edition. It was just something for me and my friends to play, something to make the game a bit more exciting. And after years of playing, one of my friends said to me, there's enough here. It could be its own game. Flash forward to 4 long years later, and the summit is finally in view. What if there was more customization? What if you weren't stuck to a single class? What if you could respawn when you were design spells on the spot? What if there was no maximum spells on the spot? What if there was a game where you could play anything? Be anybody. No limitations, no questions asked. I'm happy to finally say it. Welcome to Utopia. I really do love what has become of this game. It's been a dream I go on and on about to my friends every day. However, there are a lot of things that could change. A lot of features that could be tweaked here and there. I get a ton of cool ideas from people. New species, adding more features, developing cunning mechanics, recreating the entire Magecraft system from scratch. A lot of these ideas are amazing, but not all of them are amazing for Utopia in specific. And honestly, a lot of those reasons are not very obvious. So I decided to make a video about it. You can click to see it here. Okay, I'm sorry, I tricked you. You're actually already watching the video. What I showed you was the subscribe button, which you should click, unless you have before. In that case, you probably don't want to do it. It'll be bad for your health. Wow, this joke is running out of steam. Okay, this feels like a good place to start. The entire design philosophy of Utopia is customization. And when I say customization, I do mean through and through. Customizable items that you can craft in-game, custom spells that you can develop on the fly, like right before you cast them, an infinite number of species that you can play as, or none at all. But that all sounds very complex and daunting to learn. And this isn't GURPS. It also is not D&D. Squint. So to lower this barrier of entry, I want something that new players can pick up off the fly. Something that requires minimal math, minimal previous experience, and minimal as possible. Does that mean anything? So here's how I went about it. Everything is customizable, but nearly half of the book is just examples of things crafted with this system's customization properties. The human species can be created with the custom species system. The claymore can be designed with the custom item system. The spell fireball can be made with custom spells in the back of the book. When you first open Utopia, this is what you'll see. A handful of options that you can choose from. Examples to get you started, to get new players introduced, and to give you some context on this world. Then we'll dive into mechanics, things like grappling, action economy, the number of things you can do on your turn, and when it's not your turn anymore, what it takes for you to become alive not anymore. Then, for those of you who want to homebrew without having to homebrew, you go to the back. The red border of the page means, hey, this is where the magic happens. Not like spell magic, I mean that too, but other types. I'm just gonna assume you know what I mean. Seems pretty cut and dry, right? Makes sense? Well, below the surface of that, there's actually a lot of things under the hood that makes this all possible. For instance, customizable creatures also use customizable items for how they interpret damage, especially since they can use those items. As well, slow weapons have a different cost for damage than, say, fast weapons. So what happens when the claymore deals a little bit too much damage? Well, we can reduce it a little, right? Just a little? I mean, sure, but that means that all slow weapons will now need to be reduced. And of course, that means that slow weapon damage will need to be checked against moderate and fast weapons. Artifacts and spells can deal damage too, so that'll have to be checked. Now that all the slow weapons have been changed, every other core slow weapon in the book will need to be rechecked. And since the weapons change, all the programs I designed to help calculate the weapons are obsolete, and all the creatures will need to be redone. You know, the cybernetic cyborg talent tree feels a lot more powerful now that slow weapons got nerfed, so I should probably check that. Hopefully you see where I'm going. Everything is very interconnected. The more moving parts you add to the system, the more ways it can break, and the more tight-knit it'll need to be in order to keep it balanced. Utopia is currently in a very fine balance, and moving things around comes with a lot of issues that need to be resolved. I'm not joking when I say I constantly get notified of something like, hey, this is really powerful, and I'll look and I'll be like, oh yeah, that's from like 4 item balance patches ago. I must have forgotten to check that portion. And it doesn't even have to do with items. It's tough, but we're still on the tip of the iceberg. That's right, stay with me. I want to show you something else. What does flavor mean, and what does crunch mean? Thematics, also known as flavor, is basically what setting your world takes place in. Is it medieval, kind of Lord of the Rings style, or perhaps some space fantasy, akin to Star Wars? Maybe it's a modern post-apocalyptic. The Utopia system is designed to handle all of it. Whatever setting you have, fantasy or sci-fi or otherwise, Utopia was made with them in mind. Does that mean that Utopia has 0 flavor? Well, no, there's an entire history. I mean, Utopia is literally 1 timeline out of 6 total, and that's just within the current scope. I see the eyes emoji popping up from the lore side of the Discord server as we speak. Utopia takes place on 2 different bodies, an Earth-like and a Moon-like body. Paya, the Earth-like body, is chocked full of magic and mythology. Uto, the Moon-like body, is a hyper-urbanized sci-fi civilization. But how do we manage to handle both any setting while also holding on to Utopia's setting? Well, it'll be broken up by volume. The game that you can play right now is called the Utopia ttrpg Core Guide. You can consider this the system manual. It includes some hints towards Utopia's greater world, but it does not go in depth. That's completely on purpose. This is the book you look at when you want to repurpose the Utopia system. It's mechanics focused. Another volume, one I'm going to have my editor show as a giant black book with a white question mark on it because I love teasing you in specific, will dive into maps, flavor, settings, history, wars, events, yada yada, lore and stuff. I've had tons of amazing questions about Utopia's lore and history. I promise it goes very deep. There's entire games of their own, categories in the Discord server. Heck, the Discord server was deemed the Oriverse by the community and officially renamed for that. I began as a lore-based creator, but it's not for this book. There's not enough time, space, or money I can throw at it to make it all fit cohesively. In fact, that's one huge point I'd like to make. Space. This is honestly one of the dumbest issues I have, but it's one that haunts me regardless. Talent trees, mechanics, item features, magic options, all of them require an amount of information that you need to be able to read and understand. The easier, the better. The font of this text needs to be many things. A strong enough contrast to be very visible, large enough to be accessibly readable, and graphically appealing enough to want to read it in the first place. With all of that, how the heck do I fit this ability into this little chevron in the warfare tree? I know it sounds dumb, but I need to fit these huge, complicated abilities into very small spaces. Therefore, it gets reduced to this. There's a lot of clarification that gets lost in compacting it this much, and with this comes more questions and things to be weary about in the future. As of writing this, I just spent 2 hours working on only the Griffin stat block because spacing is such a nightmare. None of this is to mention that I made this entire book in Illustrator, which is not designed to be making a book like this. Does it work? Absolutely. Was it smart to make literally all 250 pages their own separate independent files? I don't want to talk about it. Stop asking. Listen, this was a whole different beast 4 years ago. I'm doing my best. I am completely in agreement that there are a million changes, mechanics, and features that would make the play experience more enjoyable to certain groups. And that's my final piece on this topic. Different playstyles. You know, someone once told me, you can't please everybody. And I took that to heart. And by to heart, I mean I used it as fuel to feed my relentless need despite the idea that you can't please everybody. Utopia is designed to match a plethora of different playstyles. Remember when I asked about what crunchy meant? It means very specific rules, essentially. Is there an exact metric designed to tell you the weight times velocity ratio that equivalates to damage? That's crunchy. Do you gain abilities by retconning what you did in the past via flashback, toss it to your game master and hope it sticks? That's not crunchy. Both of these are very fun styles of play, but they are very different styles of play. Utopia, by nature, is semi-crunchy. However, when you play, you may discard certain rules. How much fall damage did you take? None, because you convinced your GM that you did a sick tray flip off the cliff face and somersaulted down the bank. Duh. As well, there will be advanced rulings used specifically for those who are interested in min-maxing, hard numbers, things like that. Funny story, I actually plan to make a tiny little dozen-page expansion called Mini's Guide to Maximization that literally just gave advanced tournament-style rules. I'm not saying it won't happen, just thought I'd tell you. So when we talk about creating a clarification for specifically how this magic feature interacts with this specific item feature, we're talking about a dime a dozen occurrence. Every single clarification costs space, text, and more attention and bookkeeping from players and the GM. I do my best to stay consistent with what order I put things in, how much clarification I put into things. If something seems oddly vague, it's likely on purpose. What happens when you resurrect a body from the dead? A lot happens. Too much for me to put in a single resurrect feature of necromancy. Therefore, I will leave it at, haha, they're dead, not anymore, for now. Your GM and your setting will dictate how exactly that functions. In the future, there will be more and more developments on how exactly it works in Utopia, but like I said, this should be universal for setting. The system, not the game. Phew, God, I yap too much. Ultimately, I hope it makes sense as to why this game takes so long to develop, the thought that goes into all of the weird little quirks, and why some amazing ideas just don't work here and now. There's always space here in the future for more things, and I'm not even talking about errata. I mean, moving the balance to make broken abilities less broken, or giving more power to those who lost it. I really prefer not to retcon. For now, I'm personally very happy with where Utopia is. I like how it plays, and I think it achieves its goals in the way of customization and playability, even in diverse playgroups. If you want to play the game for yourself, the prototype is free to download and in the description. If you have any trouble with it, have any questions about how to play, or you're looking for a group, check the description for a link to my Discord server. There are tons of people who are answering those questions and setting up those groups. Also, if you're interested in asking me questions and want an immediate answer, I always invite questions during Twitch streams. I stream Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, and love hearing questions about the system. If you want to know more about the things that I do, or just like watching a little Ori dude say funny words, subscribe to the channel. I'm actually like inches away from YouTube and Utopia being a full-time job, and your support really does mean the world to me. Thank you to my patrons as well for helping and supporting me. You guys seriously rock, absolute chads. And of course, thanks.